To protest or not to protest, these are the questions on the minds of millions of Nigerians as August 1 approaches. Hello and welcome to Sunday Politics. My name is Sagir Ibrahim, standing in for your regular host, Abdullahi Ahmed. First, some tidbits. Presidential candidate of the Labour Party in last year's general elections, Peter Obi, has thrown his weight behind the planned nationwide protest over the current economic hardship. Now, some youth are planning a nationwide protest, of course, between August 1 and 15 against the rising cost of living and economic hardship, of course. Speaking on Sunday after a meeting with Governor Alex Otti of Abia State, Obi said protesters must carry out the act within the ambit of the law. He also charged security agencies to be law-abiding, saying protest is allowed globally. Also, the Nigerian Constitution, which he says supports, of course, this protest. He also added that they should please do as much as they can to remain law-abiding and also civil, so that it allows us as a nation to grow within the law. These are some of the developments. Also, the governor of Abia State, Alex Otti, in similar vein, has rejected the position of the presidential candidate of the Labour Party in last year's general election, Peter Obi, regarding the planned nationwide protest. Obi, while speaking during a courtesy visit to Governor Otti at his country home in Mvosi, Isilangwa South local government area, backed the planned protest. However, Otti, who is the only governor in the Labour Party, tackled Obi, saying the bad governance people are currently complaining about the previous administrations was not occasioned by this administration and, as a matter of fact, precedes it. He emphasized that protesting without police approval is illegal. Now, of course, these are some of the developments that has continued to trickle in as Nigerians wait to see what the outcome of the August 1 planned nationwide protest is going to be about. There is hunger in the land. A lot of people have continued to complain, to raise their voices on the developments, both in the news, outside the news, and including on social media, saying that, well, it's quite difficult for them and perhaps they might go on the streets to protest. Others, on the other hand, are saying, well, including the government, these protest organizers are faceless. And this brings the question, what is the motive of the organizers? Why can't they come forward so as for the government to engage in a constructive dialogue to address the concerns that are being raised? This, of course, will form the conversation for tonight's program, as I'm joined in the studio and also via video chat. First, here in the studio, I have Salihu Mahmud. He is a public commentator. And, of course, joining me virtually is Mukhtar Suleiman, who is a communications expert. Salihu, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, anchor person.
Yes, indeed. So let's first start with this, of course, report, which is going to form the fulcrum of this conversation. Now, of course, Nigerians in Kaduna State have continued to complain about the rising cost of food items in the market. This was exceptionally, of course, echoed during one of our reporters' visit to Kaduna Market. Bello Musa, who was there, brings these details.
There used to be a beehive of activities here at the yam markets, popularly known as Endoya, in Kaduna metropolis. However, the situation is different due to economic hardship in the country.
See my yam. I cannot be able to sell it since morning. I'm living in Kakuri. Before I go house now, I will go and borrow money for transportation to reach Kakuri. See my yam. I haven't sold it. Nobody's entering to buy yam.
How many days now I cover the yam? I cannot sell. Today again I opened the yam. I did not sell. I want to go home now. What is time now? I want to go home. But before 2 days we drop. The very day we drop this yam, say we sell it. But we cannot sell it. Everybody will hear the price. They will run back. Everybody, they will hear the price. They will run back.
Despite the cost, some people are still buying, although you can still get yam at a reasonable price. Yam sellers say the prices of yams are not within the reach of ordinary Nigerians.
Especially this Nigeria yam. They say 1 million plus this year. Yes. That is 10,000 naira. Don't the people will buy it to these Biro people? How much do we expect them to go and sell it? They have to put their own gain and sell. And when they put their own gain and sell, they will tell you can take 1 yam from there. They will tell you it's 11,000 or 13,000 or something like that.
Yes. See now, see this yam you are seeing like this. See it, I carry it. This one you get this one 15. This one you get this 12,000 naira. For 1 year, yes.
Besides insecurity, they said removal of fuel subsidy is another factor responsible for high cost of food items.
This yam you are seeing here now, transportation is 100 pieces of yam. It's 25,000 naira. This yam you are seeing here, 25,000 naira for to enter motor come Kaduna.
Where we are taking this yam from, Ado Ekiti. Before we will reach there, if you hold a transport, go come, we hold 7,000 naira. Enter motor to Abuja. From Abuja, we enter motor to Ado Ekiti. Take this yam. When I'm going to Ado Ekiti to take this yam last week, I spent less than 35,000 naira transport.
They call on the government to intervene to alleviate the sufferings of Nigerians. Bello Musa, Trust TV News Kaduna.
Well, let the conversation now begin. With me in the studio, Salihu, of course, we watched this report. 15,000 naira for a tuber of yam, 12,000 naira in some cases, costing as much as 35,000 naira to transport these commodities from the different parts of the country, where they are purchased to Kaduna, where they are sold. Does this justify or vindicate Nigerians with regards to, what they've been clamoring for?
Well, you see, we envisaged this kind of issues right from time. Like 6 months ago, under our Arewa Youth for Peace and Security, we did issue a press release telling Mr. President there is hunger, poverty, and insecurity in the land. And the moment there is hunger in the land, there is nothing that cannot happen, because a hungry man is an angry man. So the issues are, the most devastating and shameful part of it is that we are one of the most agriculturally endowed nations in the world, not even in Africa. Because when you take from Ekiti, Niger, Kwara, Benue, Jigawa, Kebbi, Katsina, Zamfara, and other parts of the country, including Anambra, Enugu, Ebonyi, you see we farm a lot of cassava, yam, millet, guinea corn, and other crops. But what happens, even at this present time, for people to feed 2 times daily has become very difficult. Like this woman lamented, they buy this yam from Ekiti State. Ado Ekiti is capital of Ekiti State. Look at the distance. Before you leave Kaduna, you spend almost 4 hours to get to Gwagwalada. From there, they take vehicle to Ado Ekiti. Look at even the issue of insecurity on our roads, where although Ekiti axis have been experiencing kidnap-related cases and also other things. Then in areas like Kwara North, towns like Kayama, in Kwara North, Kayama local government area, to Kosobosu, Barutel local government area, where they farm majorly cotton, soybean, and yam. Is not also easy, because if you go to Kayama, for instance, in Kwara North, and Baruten in Kosobosu in Barutel local government, if you buy those yam from Kosobosu to Kayama, ordinarily you are not supposed to drive more than 1 hour. But due to dilapidated nature of the road, you spend almost 4 hours from Kosobosu to Kayama in Kayama local government. Then from Kayama to Kanji, where you have the largest dam in Africa, is just 67 kilometers. Ordinarily, it's supposed to be less than 1 hour journey, but you end up spending 4 to 5 hours depending on the vehicle. Then if you now say you are going there to buy yam and bring to Abuja to sell, it means this tuber of yam that this woman is saying, that man is saying they sell for 13, you will be selling at 25,000.
No, this is for just yam.
For yam alone. Then you now come to beans. The worst is even tomatoes. You see how much tomato has been costing in market and also other things. We are talking about food security. We have reserves and what have you. Look at during the Buhari administration, a lot of billions were put into rice farming, where you have rice mills in Kebbi. What has happened to these mills? So in all, that is to say, the immediate removal of subsidy from the point of inauguration by President Ahmed Bola Tinubu was responsible for this hike in price of foodstuffs and goods and services. So if discretion was used, it wouldn't have been like this, because from the removal of the subsidy, transportation went up, then foodstuffs and also other services that people enjoy.
Okay. All right. So now, removal of fuel subsidy, unification of the exchange rate, these are what Nigerians have consistently pointed as the culprits of these developments. But then again, the government has come out, vehemently in defense of its policies to say that, well, first of all, the removal of fuel subsidy was not done by this administration because the budget of 2023 did not even capture, at least for the last 6 months, did not capture the subsidy payments. So now, does this vindicate them? And secondly, it has continued to say that yes, of course, there's strife in the land. Yes, of course, there's hunger. And of course, there's been difficulties that's been experienced by, Nigerians across the country. But then again, it is one that is open to addressing some, of these problems in the different, palliative measures that it has rolled out. But is this enough to dissuade Nigerians from coming out?
This brings me to legendary Dr. Sagir Ibrahim barrister. In one of his albums, The Truth, he said our English moves from arithmetical to geometrical, that we can even speak English than American Congress and British Parliament. The man has been exonerated. That album, I want you as an anchor person and as a journalist to go and play. Do you see that all that is happening now? That Dr. Sagir Ibrahim barrister envisaged it and sang it there. Because the issues are, if somebody lives in Ikoyi, Banana Island, Asokoro, Maitama, when they are talking about hardship, they laugh over it. Most of these people lamenting that it was the past administration. Is it not transition from one APC government to the other? If they have moral standards and what have you, none of them is supposed to come and start telling them. Because if it were to be from APC to another party, would have said maybe it's opposition and what have you. But transition from one APC president to another. And if they said the last administration of Muhammadu Buhari made arrangement for it, how come he never made such pronouncement? How come the price of mudu of beans, bag of beans, sweet potatoes, Irish potatoes, tomatoes, yam and others never went up as that? I know how much was mudu of gari before Muhammadu Buhari administration left. I know how much mudu of gari, which is 1,005 now, is under Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu. I know how much was transport from the city center here to even Gwagwalada, to Kuje, to Buhari. Today, before you travel, if you are not traveling by flight, if you are going by road, none of these transport companies in Utaku or Jabi will carry you in their buses less than 35,000. How much was it before now? These are the questions we should ask ourselves. Then we are talking about the subsidy issue. Secretly, the administration had even paid for subsidy because in a leak out memo by the Minister of Finance, Wale Edu, there is this accelerated sustainable advancement plan that leaked. It was alleged that in 2023, the government of Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu had paid 3.6 trillion as subsidy money. Then they had made provision for another 5.4 trillion in the accelerated sustainable advancement plan until it leaked before they denied it. So who is fooling who? So the issues are, I think, as a humanitarian government, because my surprise is even that Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu in the 90s was at the forefront, Afenifere member, Nadeko member, that fought to make the military to know that they must return Nigeria to democracy.
But he exonerated himself by saying that he never led any violent protests. And because of the fact that the protests that he led had a face, of course, they were able to dialogue.
I want to remind Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief that it was one of his uncle, now late Deputy Commissioner of Police, that advised him during Abacha administration to make himself available to the nearest divisional headquarters when he was hiding after they were declared wanted. The Deputy Commissioner of Police is part of the Tinubu family. He called him and advised him before Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu made himself available. Is that record not there? President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, going by even the positive antecedent of his mother, Iyaloja, Alaja Abibat Mogaji, Iyaloja of Lagos, who was an humanitarian. By now, Nigerians were supposed to be taking milk, to be feeding at lesser price. So I think if these people that surrounded him, if Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu, the Jagama of Borgu, wants to know, thank God this late musician and the barrister I mentioned, Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu used to call it Egbo. You should please go and listen to some of Ainde Barrister's questionnaire, Nigeria and the Truth album. Part of the problem of these policy makers is that when they are in presidential villa, when they are in confined areas, in these customized SUVs, flying with presidential airplane, first class, whatever, they don't seem to know what is happening. We are there to be in Utako village. We are there to be in Ihiri village, in Anambra, Maigatari town in Jigawa state, in Gumel, in Akpomo, in Osun state, in what do you call it, Oyo town in Oyo state, or Shaki in Oyo state, or going to Ewekoro in Ogun state, or going to Iyanakpaja in Lagos, or Kokomaiko, Oregun, and other suburbs, seeing how people are suffering, starving. They wouldn't be telling us this, or going to Agbo in Delta State, or even going to Rumola at the heart of. I was in the River State the other day to catch an appointment. The airport taxi that took me, we had to pass through NTA because I was going to Rumokuta. I saw a woman with 4 kids. By seeing the woman, you know it is situation. I asked the taxi to stop. I just interacted with the woman. She said since yesterday night, they've not even gotten Gary. Where is your husband? That the husband has run away. That is oil-rich states like River State. Same way if you go to Bayelsa, that is also oil producing. If you go to areas like Kolokuma or Pokuma, Brass, you see people are suffering. So it is not issue of Yoruba, Hausa, Igbo. It is also affecting Bokobaru, Batonu, Ishekiri, Nupe, Kakanda. So this time around, we are united by Wahala.
It's a Nigerian problem.
It is.
Not a particular segment of the society.
Of course, absolutely.
Then Nigerians, well, here comes the question of whether you should go out to vent your frustration with regards to the hunger and the rising cost of living. On the other hand, of course, do we give the government a chance to maybe in a couple of months or so or thereabout, let's say in a year, come back again to the table to say, look, you've not done well, and because of this, we are going to go back on the streets to protest. But by and large, Salihu, currently what we know for a fact is that quite a number of leaders within the Nigerian society have spoken against this protest. I'm talking about governors, I'm talking about traditional rulers, leaders of student union association, market association, labor unions, and the likes of that have all come out to demarcate this protest. Now, what message does this send in the minds of Nigerians and yourself?
Well, I think I listened to Chief of Defense Staff, General C.G. Musa, saying some opposition as well as miscreants and what have you might take advantage of this protest to wreak havoc. Maybe there are certain intelligence reports available before him. And again, the IGP, Kayode Egbetokun, said for any group that wants to protest on August 1st should go to the Commissioner of Police in their state, the name of the organization, their phone numbers, and what have you. All these things are undemocratic. Globally, demonstrations.
So you think they are trying to profile them?
Well, that is it. No two way about it. They are trying to profile. The issues are, I know, of the EndSARS protest that nearly turned out to be. Look at what happened at Lekki and also other things. But I also know globally that security agencies, both Army, Navy, Air Force, Police, DSS, all that thing, can be by the side while peaceful protest is going on. There is that police provision where they say if there are gatherings of people that exceeds 10, that you need clearance from the police. Maybe they are coming from that angle. But if at the end of the day, the people that will come out to protest are to give their messages, I don't think they should be given certain conditions.
But what do you say to this development about this seeming widespread rejection and condemnation of these protests by these leaders? Because, of course, you are aware that chatter has begun to emerge that some of them might be sellouts, because in the interim, they are leaders who could see for a fact that, of course, their followers are facing these problems as they are, but still yet they come out to say don't protest. Or is it because the protesters and those who have decided to lead the protest have decided to remain faceless?
Maybe there are issues better known to some of the Itato Protestant group leaders that have now denounced their earlier grounds and utterances, because I even went over the social media and saw some of them saying they were the ones that started this planning after Salah, this and that. Now they are backing out and what have you. There are allegations that money might have exchanged hands. It is not impossible. But be it as it may, I want Mr. President to make a national broadcast. That is number one. Then number two, we have ministers of humanitarian affairs, agric and what have you. This is the time, in collaboration with Nigerian Governors Forum, senators, House of Rep members, State Assembly members, they need to show that they also care for Nigerians by not only talking, by bringing out money to buy foodstuffs and other things that people need, because people are dying, so that from what local government they will start giving physically, not this one that they will bring maybe 1,000 bags of rice or millet and just say they've given millions. Because the issue beyond protests, Nigerians are hungry. Like I told you, my Arewa Youth for Peace and Security had issued press statement 6 months before even the Senate told Mr. President that Nigerians are hungry. I himself affirmed that. So if we must enthrone our art-end democracy, let us do what is right, when and how. And again, their cost of governance is also responsible for some of the hardships. If you see the convoy of House of Rep members, senators, ministers, governors, or even Mr. President, that one is enough to feed more than 10 local government in states. If you, for example, go to Zurmi, where there is insecurity, Talata Mapara, or Bungudu, or Shinkapi in Zamfara State, you will shed tears. You see 5-year-old child has not eaten for 3 days. No bathing, nothing. And none of these people is showing concern. Most of them are in Abuja, in air-conditioned edifices, 150 million SUV, flying first class and what have you, eating in the DUO restaurant, 805 restaurant. That is not why we elected them to be there.
All right, let's take responses from Mukhtar Suleiman, who joined us via video chat. He'll be talking to us from Kaduna State. Welcome to the program, Mukhtar. So, as a communication expert, what would you make of the seeming back and forth between the federal government and the would-be protesters? On one hand, the federal government is saying, well, come to the table and dialogue with us. On the other hand, these seemingly faceless protesters or would-be protesters are saying, well, the government probably has something up its sleeve.
Good evening, everyone. I think the first thing to actually is that the government will always have something up its sleeve. And what we are actually looking out for, I'm speaking as we because I'm also a part of the citizen, the Office of the Citizen, is that we're looking for governance that actually works for each and every one as a country. That has actually been the case for a very long as Nigeria is concerned. And it is important and very pertinent for us to note that the right to protest is actually protected constitutionally. But then on the flip side, we also have to take cognizance that it's also important to put certain things in place. We cannot decide that we want to protest without first ensuring that sorry, this thing is distracting me. My name is Mukhtar Suleiman, not Mukhtar Modibo. Just saw that and then it just sort of pops up. Well, yeah, sorry about that. Well, coming back to the conversation, I think it's very, very important for us to remember and realize that as a group of people, the essence of protest is for us to ensure that we can negotiate and get something. We can't just go to the streets and keep negotiating. It doesn't work that way. Sorry, keep protesting. It doesn't work that way. And while we know that pursuant to Section 39 and Section 40 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that we have freedom of expression and freedom to assemble as a people, it's also important to note that pursuant to Section 45 of the Constitution, those fundamental human rights are actually going to be restricted on the basis of national security and a host of other issues. So aside from that, another thing I would want to advise the protesters and those who will be on the streets, probably I'll be there. I'm not certain yet if I'm going to be around. Is to also make it clear that it is unconstitutional to call for the resignation of the president. We understand that times are hard, things are difficult, but it is important that we err on the side of the law. We do not err on the side of the law. we have to ensure that we stay within the law, the confines of the law. Calling for the resignation of democratically elected government officials is seditious and is punishable by the Constitution, and we have to stay within that confines. And we know that one of the mightiest protesters is Martin Luther King, and in his book Letters from his cell, he actually clearly states that sense of creating creative tension, which is protest, is to ensure that the government or the communities that have refused to address certain issues can come to the table and address those issues. We have to have demands. If we can get one or two of those demands, we can go home, regroup, and come back, as opposed to staying on the streets for the entirety or the entire time of the protest. It doesn't work that way. We're going to give them time for them to turn us against ourselves, and that doesn't work. That means it's going to be counterproductive. So I think, by and large, Nigerians should actually learn and understand that we have to learn from the mistakes that we made during the NSAS protest, and that has been one of the best protests that we've had as a people, and the protest that we want to go on now. Because yes, it is important that we go and demand for good governance. It is important for us to make our voice be heard, but we need to have an objective. If we don't have an objective, we won't have a direction.
Thank you so much for that very apt submission. But then again, Salihu, do you agree and do you share similar concerns that there's a possibility, of course, that this protest can very well be hijacked by these unscrupulous elements as seen in the previous protests, particularly the NSAS protest? I mean, we saw this protest turn out from something that was meant to be a modest demonstration become violence to the extent that some have allegedly accused the Nigerian military and the government of shooting at protesters.
It depends on how the security circle manages it. Because right now I'm privy to certain security arrangement. For example, from entrance and exit points, already intelligence officers of all the service agencies are manned there working. In fact, if a vehicle is coming in and they feel they are suspicious, they ask questions, check boot, and also other things. So if they go by that discretion, it won't trigger anything, because a man that is hungry don't want to fight. He only want to be at. So from the armed forces, which is Army, Navy, Air Force, police, DSS, on that day, even immigration, customs, civil defense, fire service, what have you, they will all work together, including the VIA and what have you, where as they are protesting, they can be moving. We see how it is done abroad and what have you. So if the security agency, and I know this Inspector General of Police is a kind of civilized police officer. He has seen it all. He has been the Commissioner of Police in Kwara. He has been AIGs on 7, now he's IG and whatever. Despite his closeness to the president as a former CSO, I know he will use discretion by dispatching intelligent and deploring intelligent and human as well as civilized police officers. Who don't forget, there was a protest during the labor protest in Lagos where police divisional headquarters went and bought water. You saw it on social media. So I believe this is the way it is going to be, where if it's officers of gas brigades, they will buy even food for the protesters and water, because some of these police officers have blood running in them. They have civilians as their family, children, and what have you. So where if you are there, you have one or two blood relation in that gathering and also what. Then to the protesters too, and we want them to maintain restraint. It shouldn't be violent. What we want to do is to ensure that the president gets the message. Then coming to the area of saying, asking the president to resign is unconstitutional, I don't think so. Because if a first world democracy like America, for some health challenges, Biden can let go his re-election, what have you, and make his deputy to go, then it means we are learning from them.
Okay.
So, yes.
So I think Mukhtar quoted a section of the Constitution where, it specifically states these provisions. But then again, the phone lines are open. Viewers, feel free to call in with your thoughts, comments, and of course, concerns on these developments. Hunger protest. Should the government be given a chance, or should Nigerians hit the streets to drive home their demands? These questions are for you to answer. Please call the phone lines with those comments and concerns. Moving over now to Mukhtar. Mukhtar, real concerns about the direction that these protests might take. Do you have any worry over the fact that nobody has come out to say, well, I am one of those who are supporting this protest. I am one of those who will be leading the charge on the set date in so state? Are you concerned that there's nobody yet to come forward as a leader of the protest?
I don't think the concern for the protest. I don't think I am concerned about who the face would be. I don't think we should also focus on that. That's not the crux of the matter. We should stay on the issue and what people are actually demanding for. Sorry, I can't hear you. If you're speaking, I cannot hear you.
Go ahead while we try to fix up that.
Yeah, I can hear you now. So yeah, like I was saying, I said I don't think the crux of the matter is whether or not who is going to be leading the protest. I think it matters more that we understand that it is important for us to actually negotiate by the time the government begins to hear us. We cannot just go to the streets to protest on ambiguously. We cannot just go and protest ambiguously. So we have to ensure that as we're going, we have what we need, what we want to get. We can clearly state these things and say, okay, this is where we are going with this particular process. If you look at a very popular protest through the years, it has always been very, very clear that this is what the protesters want. Black Lives Matter was saying that we don't want more, is akin to NSAS, the NSAS protest, which was police brutality. The ERA movement by Martin Luther King, that's the equal rights movement, was for voting rights for Black people and also equal access to social amenities. So these are very, very clear-cut protests, and we also have to ensure that we have that for ourselves. The same thing happens with the NSAS protest. We know what we wanted. We went out and we said we wanted SARS to go because of police brutality, and then SARS left. So for this process, we say, okay, once hunger to end, we need to be able to break that larger objective or that larger aim into sub-objectives. So what do we want the government to do to end hunger? What is it that we're asking for? I don't think that's entirely our job, but since we're the ones demanding, they say the plaintiff, the proof is in the hands of the plaintiff, you that you are complaining. So I think it is very, very important for the protesters, for all of us as we're going to say, okay, clearly, for us to get this right, the government needs to put this in place. It needs to put that in place. It needs to ensure. I can hear you.
I would allow you to continue your thoughts. However, good evening. Welcome to the program. What's your name and where are you calling from?
This is Emmanuel calling from Kaduna.
Emmanuel from Kaduna, please go ahead with your contributions. But before then, please turn down the volume of your TV set so it doesn't interfere with the conversation.
Okay, thank you so much. I enjoy your program very well. And issue of the...
Emmanuel, I'm finding it difficult to make out what you're saying. Perhaps you could speak up. Okay, so I think that Emmanuel should give us a call back. We've been finding it difficult to make out some of what he said. However, quick rules of engagement: if you're calling into the program, do well to turn down the volume of your TV set so it doesn't interfere with the conversation. And I think we have another caller now. Good evening, welcome to Sunday Politics. What's your name and where are you calling from? Hello, good evening, welcome to the program. I think we lost that call as well. Salihu, so Mukhtar says he doesn't have any issues with the fact that the protesters and the leaders are faceless. However, we have another caller now. Good evening, welcome to the program. What's your name and where are you calling from? And unfortunately, we lost that call again.
Hello.
So, good evening, can you hear me?
Yeah, good evening. My name is Aliyu Aminu.
Ali, you calling from where?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm calling from Niger State.
Ali from Niger State. Go ahead with your contribution. So, should we protest or should the government be given an opportunity?
Nigerians are very hungry and they are angry. Hello?
Go ahead, Ali, I can hear you.
Yes, so Nigerians are very angry and they are ready to do this protest. So what I'm suggesting, since there are some allegations that there are people that wanted to infiltrate and take this protest to state that it's not wanted, I would advise Mr. President should talk to the House of Representatives and the senators that are representing the people to go to the places that they are representing and dialogue with the people.
All right, Ali.
Because when they were seeking for this vote, They went to all these places to seek for this vote to each of the polling units.
Yes,
so
indeed,
it will be very good if they go to those places that they are representing and sit in an open conversation with the people that they are representing. This protest can lead to a better thing, and it can even be stopped. People can be able to vent, they can be able to say what is in their mind and tell the government what they want.
All right, Aliyu, thank you so much for that call. Aliyu called all the way from Niger State with his recommendations to the government. So Salihu is not just about not going out to protest. Now, here we have Nigerians who are recommending possible solutions to the concerns that the government have. They say that it's going to be hijacked by those who they claim to be unscrupulous elements. But here we have the likes of Aliyu saying, if that's your concern, then talk to the members of the House of Representatives and the Senate. Go back to your constituents and talk to them. You know, if as a leader you go back to the people and talk to the people, they ought to listen to you, isn't it?
Well, not in all cases. Like, don't forget, days back, the president hosted some traditional rulers. You can see the Sultan of Sokoto, Obi of Onitsha, the Oni of Ife, and most of other prominent traditional rulers. The essence is for them to spread the message that is from the president to the people, because even as dilapidated as it is, people still listen to traditional rulers, whether third class, second class, or first class, and other orders. The suggestion he brought is a very, very bright one, because when you look at, we have state assembly members, we have House of Rep members, and even President Ahmed Bola Tinubu did made one speech of recent where he said, "You are holding me responsible alone. What about the governors? They
What
get
about the
allocation.
governors?
They get federal allocation. What have you? Fact. Every month that goes to them. These monies, what are they used for? Are they using it for the purposes? Erase these issues. They have a governors forum. Then also go to the National Assembly. Beside their salaries, they have constituency projects. Beside that, they also have quarterly payments. This quarterly payment, what do they use it for? Of recent, a member of House of Reps presented 100 and something million Jeep to a 13-year-old daughter that completed secondary school, even though it is good, because when you look at their take-home package, but in a country where people are hungry, it ought not to be. So I think it's a collective decision. Same way we are blaming Mr. President, some of the governors should be blamed too. Senators, House of Reps, State House of Assembly members. Thank God today we have Supreme Court judgment favoring local governments where their funds will go directly.
Now,
let's hope they will not pilfer with such account. They will use it for developmental strides and also to tackle hunger.
All right, let's get Mukhtar's perspective. So Mukhtar, this administration has taken a bold step at the federal government by taking the state governors to court, slugging it out and actually winning, talking about the local government autonomy and the rights of local governments in terms of their affairs being meddled with by their state governors. By and large, this has been done, and the expectation now should be that in the coming months, hopefully that we would see the establishment of a local government elections commission, or the responsibility of conducting local government elections ceded to INEC. In all of this, would you be one to agree that this administration is trying the best that it can to ensure that the grassroots get the best in terms of development?
Well, it's a very difficult thing to actually say at this point, because we know that there's a lot of corruption at state and local government levels. So if you're going to give local government officials the power, this newfound power that the Supreme Court have granted, what level of accountabilities, what measures of accountabilities will be there? Who would they be accountable to? This is also a very, very important part, because you don't also want a situation where local government chairmen are fighting with state governors within that conference. I think that's something that has the propensity to happen in some states as well. So I think there needs to first of all be some level of accountability mechanism in place to ensure that there's right checks and balances and a clear-cut definition of hierarchy and who is in charge. So that is actually also very, very clear, because with resource control comes power. So we also want to see how we can actually check that power from the local government chairmen themselves. I think it's actually a good thing. For the longest time, we've been clamoring for local government to be receiving their funds, but looking at it more critically, it's still very important that we actually look at how to ensure that there's strict accountability mechanisms that ensures good governance gets to the grassroots.
But then again, Mukhtar, we've seen state governors receive more funding in terms of FAC allocation over the course of the last 1 year, from July 2023 till date, all thanks to the removal of the fuel subsidy. But here we have Nigerians pointing accusatory fingers at just the federal government. Is it fair that Nigerians point just at the federal government rather than other governments, especially the subnationals?
I think it's very poor of us to point fingers, actually. The government, I look at the entirety of the government structure as a system. If you remember the systems theory from school, which argues that everybody operates as a whole rather than a part of each other. So it's also a very, very important aspect for us to consider and look at that. We cannot look at the government as an abstract entity. The government is made of the federal, the state, and the local governments all together, working together to see how they can actually achieve and make ends meet. So this is also very, very important for us to actually look at things from that perspective as well.
All right, then. By and large, Salihu, you listen to Mukhtar's perspective. What's your own submissions with regards to all of this? Is it a fair assessment for Nigerians to point just at the federal government?
Well, our population is not up to that of India. They are about 1.2 billion. I was in New Delhi in 2013. The government of India has made virtually everything easier for them. Today, in New Delhi, in Mumbai, in Bombay, in Bihar, and other part of India, they don't even talk about road transportation. It's rail, and it's very, very cheap. So we must, at this point, without this transport arrangement, without other arrangement, point accusing fingers at government. Today, if there is any MOU that is being signed, who does it? It is the government. So therefore, if there are failures in every quarters, even with the separation of powers and what have you, it is government who should hold accountable, because
so it doesn't matter the tier.
You as individual, it doesn't matter. Government is government, whether it is local government, whether it is state, whether it is federal. Because
but is it fair? Is it fair to leave the state governors as it is? Because I recall that the federal government at some point, just 2 weeks ago or so, commenced the distribution of 44,400 bags of rice, it claims, to subnational elements.
And they hide some in Katsina State,
the state
where they were rebranding.
Exactly, the state governors. So this is why I'm asking the question of whether it is fair to point just at the federal government when it's seeming like the federal government is the only one trying to solve the problems that Nigerians have been so yearning and complaining about. We've seen these allotments and allocations given to state governors. They've hoarded these allotments. Allegedly, we've seen situations where even the DSS had even gone to apprehend some of those who are responsible for, some of these so-called looting of resources, and yet they still point at the federal government. Is that fair?
During the Second Republic, Lateef Kayode Jakande was governor of Lagos State. He was exceptional in terms of performance, from housing to stomach infrastructure, education, free education stripe there. That was Second Republic. Then from 1999, states like Bauchi, specifically Kano, Kwankwaso used human capacity development tactics. You see how he solved much of the problems. But today, most of our governors think we need physical development. No. When people are hungry, what you need to do is to address stomach-related issues. That's why I like Ayo say, he said there should be stomach infrastructure. So I think it is high time. I think the blame, same way we should be blaming the president and commander-in-chief, same way we should be blaming our governors and even local government chairman. Don't forget the withheld funds before this local government verdict and what have you. Some governors under the caretaker committees and what have you had withheld funds of local governments in their own pockets. What were they using these monies from? I just stated the infrastructural decay in some areas where the areas are agriculturally endowed, like Kayama local government, Baruten, Benue, and other parts of the country. So I think, just like Mr. President said, let us also extend these blames to our elected governors, House of Rep members, senators, and even state assembly members. There was a House of Rep member in the 7th and 8th House of Reps from Abuja South here, comprising of Gwagwalada, Kuje, Abaji, and Kwali. I was his advisor on media intelligence. Every morning, Honorable Issa Dobi, we drive to Gwagwalada. From Gwagwalada is in Abaji. From Abaji is in Kuje. From Kuje, so what they asked, the expectation. I said, Honorable, you are elected to come. He said, come. If I don't go and I come here, I'm in plenary, and doing this and my people. It's not so. If there is naming ceremony, there will be something. If there is, so the issues are for our elected governors, House of Reps and senators. They should also start thinking that way, where there should be physical contacts with people, not this one that barricade themselves with DSS, mobile police, and other routine of security.
All right, then, Mukhtar, here we are with Salihu in the studio, who has spoken quite exponentially on these developments, especially around the responsibilities of state and local governments. And then again, the questions remain. With the autonomy that has finally been granted to the local government, do you now think that, of course, yes, you complained about the problem of corruption and all of that, but is that going to be possible in a situation where we have an electorate and a citizenry that is aware about the responsibilities of each tier of government, particularly the local government that's the closest to them?
I think democracy does not thrive with a politically literate society. So, and one of the things that I'm really grateful for that the civic space has actually done, that civil society organizations, is to demystify the concept of governance and what it means, with organizations like budgets working around ensuring that we can understand what budget is and how budget works, to the likes of Follow the Money, working to ensure that we can have open procurement systems, to International IDEA, working to strengthen the criminal justice systems in Nigeria. These are ways that that the civic space have ensured that Nigeria and Nigerians are well educated and well knowledgeable. And if we keep that pace and with proper partnership with the media, we can also continue to see how that works. But like you actually stated, I think the answer is actually in the question itself. If the public themselves are not educated on knowing the parameters of government in different tiers and what they do and their functions, then it becomes very difficult for us to channel our grievances to the right places. So it is also very important for us to know that as powerful as the president may be, the president cannot pass bills without having 2/3 of the Senate. Don't forget, this Senate is the most diverse Senate that Nigeria has ever had since 1999. No single party has 2/3 of the Senate in the membership. So that means there has to be bipartisanship for any policy to pass. So the politicians from different parties that we all fought for in 2023 during the elections, they are all working together now. So any policy you see that has passed in the National Assembly, it had the support of all of the parties of the people that are there. So I think this is one way for us to also look at things more critically as a people in Nigeria here. So it is also very, very important for us to understand these dynamics and how they operate, understand that the state governors have their own functions as well, and they call themselves the chief security officers of their state, and they have to serve that particular function. The reason why I said I don't want to be looking at government in different broken pieces is because the government should have coordination among itself, irrespective of what's going on. So the federal government should find a way to put the state government in a very tighter leash and hold them accountable through the legislature, possibly. And then I hope what we have right now is not a rubber stamp legislative house, because that's what is being said right now, because we see the songs of the executives being sung on that particular floor, which shouldn't be the case, because those people at the Senate are supposed to be the ones who holds the executive arm of government more responsible for what they do, and that's not the case we're having today. So we have to ensure that as a people, we know where to channel our grievances appropriately and fight for it, and it's our personal responsibility to see how we can actually do and know more.
All right, conclusively, Salihu, what are your statements and your call to Nigerians, especially as most of them prepare, to hit the streets come August 1?
There should be restraint, there should be discretion, there shouldn't be hate speech, there shouldn't be inflammatory statements and also other things. We are a civilized people, even though with our low rate of literacy, whatever, just like Mukhtar emphasized, we at least have awareness, knowing what politics is. So therefore, we should not allow any principal opposition to induce us with anything. Right. What we should do should go in line with what we are facing, the cost of beans, rice, transportation, shelter, healthcare, and also for that. And then for the federal government too, especially the Chief of Defense Staff, Inspector General of Police, National Security Advisor, and other top echelons of service agencies, most of these boys, officers, and men, that will man most of these areas should be given orientation. When they fall in during tattoo, during parade, they should be told what is right, when, how, and they should go in line with civil liberty provisions.
Salihu Mahmud, thank you so much. Salihu Mahmud, public affairs analyst, joined us in the studio this evening to talk about the developments, especially around the August 1 nationwide protest that is expected to happen in the new month. Also, many thanks to Mukhtar Suleiman, who joined us via video chat from Kaduna to bear his minds on the developments. Unfortunately, viewers were unable to reach us and have your contributions on air due to, unfortunately, the network connectivity. But hopefully, definitely next week, as we come back on the program, we'll get to hear those thoughts, those comments, and those concerns. Thanks to everyone who tried calling in. Thanks to Ali, who was able to lay his minds and his recommendations on the developments. We definitely hope to see you again next time. From me, Sagir Ibrahim, saying thank you for watching. Have a good evening. Join the news hour by 9 p.m.